back to our top story now, Michael Jackson. In the past few years, Jackson's success was overshadowed by scandal. What was becoming clear to many is that the man in the mirror had a dark side. An increasingly bizarre private life became fodder for tabloids. Accusations of child molestation swirled, and while never proven, the stigma never really went away. So how did an international sensation turn into a sideshow? Three guests will help us answer that in a moment. But first, here's the CBC's Neil McDonald with a look back.
The most famous man in the world started to unravel sometime in the early 90s. Until then, the eccentricity was cute. The prepubescent theme park, the chimpanzee, the nonsensical story about sleeping in a hyperbaric chamber. But Michael Jackson clearly also had an issue with being black, and it was becoming obvious. He was surgically rearranging his face, although he denied it, and somehow he was turning white. His sensational talent, though, kept the world focused on his music until 1993, that is. That year, he was accused of molestation by a 13-year-old boy. The child described Jackson's genitals to police, who strip-searched and examined the singer to his great distress.
They served a search warrant on me, which allowed them to view and photograph my body, including my penis, my buttocks.
Ultimately, Jackson paid his accuser many millions of dollars to go away. Even his supporters concede that looked awful.
I am not in was never in Michael Jackson's bedroom, and neither are any of us. However, I think most of us feel that the settlement for Jordy Chandler seems odd and makes Jackson look somewhat, perhaps, culpable.
It's your best friend in the whole wide world, Eric Cartman.
But the satires in popular culture suddenly grew teeth.
Dr. Nelson, I'm telling you, you have to fly out here right now. My nose came off again.
And for the next 10 years, Jackson only grew stranger. Marriages that looked like shams, children whose paternity was questioned, and bizarre behavior, very bizarre behavior.
Michael Jackson is a man riddled with sexual problems from childhood. This is a man who we considered asexual. We weren't sure of his sexuality. He got married, he had kids, it didn't make sense. Nothing made sense about Michael Jackson's life.
Then, in 2003, another accusation of pedophilia, and this time, charges.
I'm done with Michael. I was a fan my whole life.
It was too much even for some of Jackson's biggest fans.
Another gift? I thought it was Groundhog's Day when I heard that.
Jackson was eventually acquitted, but the damage was done. He had been sleeping with children.
Do you still think that it's acceptable to share your bed with children?
Of course. Of course, why not?
Such was the American public's disgust that Jackson fled the country to Bahrain and Ireland for a long exile from which he'd only just returned when he died. It all stains the public love and grief and celebration of his life. He was a genius and perhaps a predator.
It's a terrible crime if in fact that's what he was. But he was never convicted, so you don't know.
That's not cool, but, you know, we don't know. No one knows.
That's not quite true. There are people who do know. And now that Jackson is dead, confidentiality agreements no longer apply. Neil McDonald, CBC News, Washington.